wanted to create a place for women journeying with cancer to be inspired and to shake up the way we look at cancer so we can activate the power of our minds to heal us from the inside. Welcome to this series, Rethinking Cancer. I'm Cindy Scott, two-time cancer thriver and author of the Healing Journal. This series is sponsored by Evolving Women, an online healing sanctuary for women journeying with cancer. You can find them at evolvingwomen.co. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be having this conversation today with Australia's leading self-love expert. Today's talk shows the power of words and the ripples a book can have. As I was going through treatment for breast cancer, I was given one of Kim's books called Like Chocolate for Women. This book shifted my thinking around the importance of self-care and showed me many practical ways to do so. Before cancer, I'd say I allowed zero time for self-care and prioritized everything else like my son, my work, or my domestic duties. And I'm sure most women can relate. So let me introduce you to this extraordinary lady. Kim Morrison is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and self-love coach. And she's on a mission to help you to help yourself. She has 5 books, if you can believe, has her own podcast called Self-Love, and a company called 28 that offers a range of essential oil and chemical-free skincare. And if that's not enough, she also runs retreats and workshops to share her wealth of nearly 30 years working with essential oils and self-care. So hello and welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, sweetheart. It's an honor.
So tell us a little bit about your journey in terms of how did you come into the self-care space, and what's this journey been like for you?
I think if you go back to your childhood, there's always something that guides and leads us. My one grandmother was an amazing baker and the other one was an incredible gardener. Mm-hmm. Sadly, I lost the gardening one when I was 9, but my mum, who had me at 17, was a very strong woman and someone who, we survived. We thrived through that as well in many ways because I didn't really realize how poor we were. I never felt like we went without. And she worked 3 jobs and it was a very interesting upbringing in the sense that I probably was like her right-hand person where I would help my younger brother and sister. Often, it wouldn't be done these days, but I'd be babysitting, for my little brother and sister while mum worked one of her jobs. And I was 9, 10 at that point. So I think I grew up quite quickly, but also I don't regret a thing because it taught me so much in who I am today. And through my teens, I always wanted to be a netballer. I wanted to play netball for New Zealand after doing ballet for a number of years and did play netball to state level. I got to the state championships and under 21s and got to that level and played netball till I was into my 40s. I then moved to Australia on a one-way ticket. I was really excited to go on my big, OE, my overseas experience that a lot of Kiwis and Aussies do. And I got as far as Melbourne. And it was in Melbourne that I happened to be sitting at a workshop. I was interested in it. And these 2 women were talking all about the powers of essential oils. And I just fell in love with them. I just wanted what they had. And so I studied under them, followed them for 2 years, then did my diploma in aromatherapy, kinesiology and reflexology. And through that time, I also happened to be doing my sports massage and sports nutrition diplomas. And in a combination of all that, I actually got into ultramarathon running. And it was through a gentleman called Cliff Young, who won the inaugural Sydney to Melbourne race at 68 years of age, a potato farmer from Victoria. I got assigned to him and told him how boring it was to watch 40 athletes run around a 400-meter track for 24 hours. And so he told me to put my money where my mouth was, and why didn't I run one? And I figured, you know what, Cindy, I'd much rather run one than watch one. So a few months later, I was lined up on a 12-hour race in Victoria and had all my oils and all the people around me that I needed. And oh my gosh, I've never met such a block in my thoughts, how I could create such an imposter kind of feeling in my head, the negativity, the wanting to quit, how much it hurt, and all of this inside talk. And anyway, for some reason, I kept going, and there's a whole another story in behind it. But with the oils, I felt like that was my real push. Plus, I didn't want DNF next to my name, which did not finish. So I kept going. Happened to win that race. I ran 95.4 Ks. And as they gave me my trophy, they said, "You've won a place to represent Victoria in the 24-hour championships." So now I had to do it all over again and twice as long. This time I was a little bit more prepared, but it was tough. And it's what we call the graveyard shift, which is why I love using my ultra marathon story and oils and all the things that I've done as a metaphor for life, because we all hit walls, we all chafe, we all get blisters, we all get injuries, we all get moments where we just don't feel like we can keep going. And that race was the race that Cliffy told me I would meet me. And I didn't know what he meant till 2 a.m. in the morning, when I was at the depths of my despair, didn't want to run, couldn't run, had nothing left in the tank. And he said, "This is the graveyard shift. How bad do you want it?" And oh my gosh, with the power of oils again and using meditation, breath work, I slowly got back out on the track and put one foot in front of the other. And as the sun came up, I got told I was 2 Ks in front of the Victorian champion, but she was gaining. And I don't know where it came from, Cindy, but I ran the last 2 hours of that race quicker than the first 2 hours. And it just showed me the potential of all of us that we don't even know we've got. And it also taught me that sometimes we have to be really down, really broken, really feeling like we're out to find that inner strength. And sometimes it's those darkest or most challenging moments that push us into our greatest strengths. So I ended up winning that race and set a world record for being the youngest female to run 100 miles in less than 24 hours. And then that gave me entrance to run for Australia. So I ended up running for Australia in England, and instead of playing netball for New Zealand. But there you go. Who would have thought?
Incredible. So obviously you learned at a fairly young age the importance of mindset, and had this amazing opportunity to actually meet yourself in those darker moments of having to really push through. Yeah.
Yes. And I think also linking back to self-care as an athlete, recovery and rehab is one of the most important factors of performance. So I've always known from a very young age, if you want the best out of your body, you got to give it the best, and you've got to put the best things into it and onto it. And I just had a passion for more natural. I did a lot of presentations and speaking for this aromatherapy company around Australia and New Zealand and Singapore and Hong Kong. Did a lot of international traveling and speaking in my early years, and got to meet a whole lot of different people. And it was really through my biggest fear of ever wanting to public speak to then becoming an international presenter and now a book writer and all the things that I never thought I'd do, that then really inspired me to create 28 Essentials, my beautiful business, which I started in 2008. It's just a small boutique company, and I've really found, and that's another metaphor for finding yourself, because motherhood, business, illness, pressures, life, they all push us in directions we may or may not want to go, but they also, I believe, only ever give us what we need to look at and what we can learn and grow from. So yeah, that is definitely my passion, is mindset, self-care, and also now leading all that into the power of self-love.
So I'm curious, Kim, then, I'm just picturing the younger you and your training for your races, and you've got this interest in natural therapies and healing your body in more natural ways. What would you say were some of the things that you did differently compared to some of the other athletes? How were you recovering in more natural ways?
Well, I hated things like energy drinks or bars of something. Like when I'd look at the ingredients on those labels, I'd go, that doesn't sound like food. That's not something my grandmother would make in the kitchen. That's not something we would eat. So why would I put that into my body? And the profile looks good, but I was more interested in the ingredients, because I also understand the body and the metabolism and how hard the liver and kidneys have to work. And the liver, our major detoxifier of the body, is under stress, and it's also related to hormones. And if we don't allow the 5 excess the exit pathways of detoxification to really fully function, that's where we get energy blocks, illness, disease. That's where our vibrational energy, there's that saying, you know, I've got shit on my liver. If you're not clearing all the shit, then unfortunately the body will let you know, and it either whispers, it'll give you little whispers like maybe headaches, or maybe you're not sleeping very well, or maybe your skin's breaking out, and then it'll start shouting at you where you're getting migraines, or now you've got insomnia, or now you've got chronic fatigue, and then it'll absolutely blow you out of the water with obviously illnesses like cancer, autoimmune, and things like that. And I'm not saying that's the only reason, of course, but I do believe it plays a massive part. Self-care and looking after yourself and listening to the whispers, the screams and the shouts is probably one of the most important components of self-care. So, you know, eating was a really big part of my world, where people would be eating these bars. I'd have scrambled eggs, or I was doing coconut oil back then, like the power of the MCT and the longevity of what good fats can do. And then when I did a body sculpting competition after I had my babies, I learned the power of nutrition even more, that whatever goes through those lips has an effect. And then when I was at a beautiful retreat one year and I got to see a live blood analysis after I'd eaten, I got to see all these components in my blood, and it was based on what I had just eaten. So for any of us to think that, oh, just have that second piece of cake, or, oh, a Diet Coke wouldn't hurt, your body is doing everything and anything it can to metabolize, eliminate, and obviously absorb if there's any nutrients. And if not, then where do those toxins go? And so I got very, very concerned and interested in how to repair and rebuild my body after an event. You can imagine after running for 12 or 24 hours, your body is not in a great shape. You're hobbling and limping, and netball, I lost so many toenails and sprains and all sorts of things. I've really pushed my body, but I also learned the power in really looking after it as well.
So one of the things that I guess I discovered along my cancer journey, I've had cancer not once but twice now, lucky me, was really that sort of, I acknowledge now that I've overridden those messages that my body was giving me. And I think we all have body wisdom that we can either tune into or we can just full on ignore. And for me, I know there were a lot of messages. Like I believed before cancer that I was really out of alignment. I probably wasn't eating very well. I wasn't exercising. I didn't actually practice self-care well at all, because I didn't actually put a lot of value on it. And kind of like what you were saying before, it's like, no, second piece of cake, that'll be fine. My body will know what to do with it. It'll be able to eliminate it just fine. And I think probably did that in a number of different ways, probably a little bit too much alcohol, a little bit too much sloth-like behavior. And I think all of that just accumulated to a point where my body had to scream at me to say, hang on, wake up, like you're actually killing yourself slowly here. So a second diagnosis with breast cancer was enough to wake me up. The first time I actually was in complete denial, swept it under the carpet, really didn't take it seriously at all. So when the more serious diagnosis came along in 2020, I was like, okay, I'm listening. What have you got for me? What am I to get from this? And I really took it on like it was a messenger, and my body had something to say to me. And, you know, through that time, I was like, okay, I need to slow down. I need to do something differently than the way that I've been showing up. And, you know, I was an adrenaline fueled, high achieving, go get 'em kind of chick that, you know, put on this big, tough superwoman suit and kept moving forward, and didn't actually stop, and didn't take time to listen to my body, didn't practice self-care. So when I came across your book, this book, look at all the bookmarks I still have in it. I read this book cover to cover, and there's so much beautiful advice, quotes, recipes, that it was a real lifesaver for me, but also a game changer in terms of shifting my mindset around self-care. And I would love for you to speak about that and what you see with women, particularly whether they've got cancer or not. What do you see around you are some of the themes around health for women?
I think one of the biggest things is there's a real, like you say, a neglect for self-care, or we have an expectation that our body will just we don't even think about it. We just expect it to show up and keep delivering. And in fact, we find headaches or insomnia an inconvenience. So because it's an inconvenience, we'll then take medications because that's the quickest way to fix it. Yeah, pop a pill. And that's the mentality we've created with this instant gratification or instant fix mentality that humans have. And you throw into that what we call sympathetic dominance, which is when your nervous system is on absolute fight or flight the whole time, where you are pushing and going. And yes, adrenaline and cortisol and all of these things will get you through for so long, but the body's not designed to be in sympathetic dominance for long periods of time. And if you think back to saber-toothed tigers, or when we were cavemen, or when we were, even in our, maybe even a couple of generations beforehand, we'd have a stressful moment occur, but then we would do what animals do. We would rest, regroup, and then we'd let it go. Whereas these days we tend to, and what I've noticed particularly with women, we carry that guilt, that shame, that anger, that remorse, and we don't even realize we're doing it, because part of our programming is because that's what we've always done, or what we've learned, or what we've seen our mothers do or other people do. We don't realize there's another way, or we don't realize you can heal from past traumatic experiences or big significant events that were highly emotionally charged. And so we tend to suppress it. We get, soldier on, stiff upper lip, keep showing up. And it's great for a little while, but I don't think the body was designed to continue in that sympathetic dominance. We want to really allow, just the parasympathetic part of the nervous system that is our rest and digest, the part of us that can actually relax or recharge. Part of relaxing is recharging. And if we do not recharge, then you are constantly taking from an empty tank, which means at some point there is nothing left. And that is when, if you're not listening to the whispers, the shouts, the screams, then eventually it will actually knock you off your perch. And it may not be cancer. It might be, some people say, oh, I had an accident. I fell over and broke my hip. Oh, no, it was just an accident. But was it? Or was that preordained? Like, I have a belief that we co-create everything, and that there's something in the learnings around that why that day at that time did you happen to have your aura all out of whack, or your energy so low that you didn't notice the step and you broke your hip today. There is no accidents, in my humble opinion. Everything is preordained or created to give you an opportunity to grow from what you're going through. And I think mindset plays a huge part. And of course, there's exceptions to every rule. You can throw in things like genetics, environmental factors, your coding, your personality. We can go into vibrational healing and energy. We can talk esoterically. We can talk star sign. Like, there are so many things I think that could really, we could go down the rabbit hole on each of those things. But ultimately, if I come back up into what I call the observer's position, where I'm actually looking at myself and honoring by looking at what I do and how I show up, my real question is, do I love myself as much as I would my child, my best friend, someone else that I would love to? It's so funny, we're so full of advice when a friend comes to us unwell or not great, and we'll tell them everything they should be doing. And yet, if you had to look back at your own self, a lot of the time we preach it more than we practice it.
Totally. And I think the way that you've just described the way a lot of women are, like that sort of adrenaline fueled, high cortisol level, high stress level mode, that was definitely me. And when I was diagnosed for the second time, I can remember I reached out to this woman. She's one of those, she's like a mentor to me. She's a very dear friend as well, but she's one of those women I look up to. And I said, Vade, what should I do? Like, I'm overwhelmed with this diagnosis. I need chemotherapy. They're talking radiation. It's going to be 1.5 years of treatment. What should I do? And that was the advice she gave me. She goes, what advice would you give a woman in your situation? And I went, ouch. Like, of course I would say, like, close your business down, take time out for treatment if you can manage that. And I was like, oh, but I couldn't do that for me. Of course I would suggest someone else to do it. But when it was, looking at me in the mirror, it was like, no way, I couldn't possibly take that time out. And it took me a week. Like, I sat with that every day. And she's like, just get on with it. Close your business, send that email out, let everybody know what's happening. And I'm like, I can't do that. That's very vulnerable. That's weak. Like, I just I was just too fearful to do that. But after a week, I had sat with it and I thought, she's right. Like, that would be the advice I would give to another woman. That's the example that I would want to set for another woman, to take time for yourself. So I actually sat down and wrote this heartfelt email. And literally within minutes of hitting send, because it was such a moment of courage for me to have to send this email out and be that vulnerable to say, hey, I'm going to be disappointing a lot of people. There's a lot of clients that are going to be disappointed that I'm not going to be there for them. But I had to send this email out and honor myself more. And I sent it out, and within minutes and hours of that email going out, I had such an outpouring of support, and not one person was disappointed or hurt or angry or insisting that I continue to work with them. It was totally understand, respect your decision, and take all the time you need. So it was so wonderful to feel so held and loved and supported. And I think that was probably one of the greatest gifts. And I talk about the gifts of cancer. I know that's very shocking for a lot of people to hear, but for me, there have been so many gifts in cancer. And one of them was the practice of self-love, because I never gave any time for me. It was like always everybody else needed something from me. I would never actually value time for self. But it was also the outpouring of love that I received from everyone along the way as well. It was like, wow, that many people care. That many people will show up for me in a time of need. Like, it really spun me out around the whole vulnerability thing. Brené Brown talks about being vulnerable and actually building more genuine relationships from that place. But I never truly opened myself in that way of being vulnerable, because I was like, oh no, that's weak. I don't want to be dependent. I don't want to need anybody. But yeah, it made all the difference in terms of actually opening my heart and letting people see where I was at and how I was struggling, because, there are dark days when you're going through something that challenging. Yeah.
It's really challenging. And I think one of the most biggest things we can ever do, I remember one of my counselors saying to us when my husband, we lost his sister to suicide, and we also lost our house a year later in the GFC, and a property deal that went wrong. Like, we were really broken, and it broke him to the point where he openly talks about this, where it took him into a world of drugs and alcohol, and yeah, our marriage was really, it was probably, may not have lasted. And I'll never forget our counselor, our therapist, sitting there saying, oh, my darlings, she was French and she was 90, and she goes, oh, darlings, this is such a gift. I remember looking at her going, a gift? A gift? I can't even pull this ribbon off, let alone open the freaking box. What do you mean this is a gift? And she said, oh, darling, in time you will see. And she is amazing, because what she did, allowing us to reframe and rethink where we were at, was actually a way for us to process what was good and what was working, pulled us back together. Maybe if we hadn't lost all our money, we might have, he'd either left or I would have kicked him out. Maybe it was through the process of her saying to us, do you love this woman? And he said, yes. And she said, do you love this man? I thought, yes. And then she said, good. When there's love, there is no problem. And I nearly called my book that. When there is love, there is no problem. Because if you really put on a lens of love, there is no problem. There's just an opportunity for growth. You cannot say that to someone who's just been diagnosed. You cannot say that to someone whose relationship's just fallen apart. You cannot say that to someone who's just lost someone they love. Oh, darling, this is a gift. No, that's the worst thing you can do. But as we all know, as we go through life and then we look back on those challenging moments with reverence, and if we've done the healing and we've really worked on ourselves, either with a coach or with a counselor or with a therapist, or with people that really know how to hold the space professionally for you, not just emotionally, then you actually can look back on those times and go, man, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am today. That is true growth, when we can actually, as you say, give thanks to the opportunity for growth, healing, expansion, awareness, all of those things. Otherwise, we're just on the treadmill of life, Cindy. It's just, we just keep going things one after the other until something does happen. And I am yet to meet a human in all my 3 decades of research and writing and teaching. I'm yet to meet one human who does not go through struggle, challenge, or times of real despair. So when I went to India a couple of years ago, and I got to sit with His Holiness, the 12th Khenting Taisatupa, who's the education head of all Tibetan Buddhist monks, and I just got chosen for a one-on-one. I felt so blessed. He said to me, "Oh, child, what's your question?" I went, yes, I have a very big question for you. And he looks at me and he goes, "What's that?" And I said, "I am sick and tired of everyone having to struggle. Why is there so much struggle in the world? Everyone I meet's got a story. Everyone I meet has to go through things." And he goes, "Oh, very human question," he said, "very human." And he looked at me and he said, "My dear, how could we possibly understand highs without lows? How do we possibly ever give kudos to light without dark? How can we possibly understand shallow without deep?" And I really got to hear that the dichotomy of the human spirit is that of extremes, that we do go through highs and we do go through lows. And for many of us, when we're going through highs, you don't notice the lows. It's who cares? And you don't actually probably notice other people in their lows. And rightly so, enjoy those highs. But as I've always said in my audiences, for those of you going through a really challenging, tough time right now, this too shall pass. You will get through this. You will find a way to manage it, however that looks. You will find a way, and whatever is meant to be is meant to be. But with volition, power, love, and real intention, and also real grace and courage and strength and dignity and all of those things that give us that superpower, we know we can courageously face anything, whatever the outcome. But then I'll always look to the audience and say, and those of you going through a really good time right now, I have a message for you as well. This too shall pass. Yeah. We just don't know when we're going to get that phone call at 3:00 in the morning, or the phone call from the clinic to come back, or the partner walking in and not being there. All of those things that happen to every single one of us. I think you'll find, and probably on your podcast, and every guest and every beautiful soul that you get to hear this or to speak to yourself, or if you really sat down with them and asked them their story, you'd be blown away at how much strength, power, conviction, and tenacity and persistence and dogma and real determination is out there. And I just take my hat off to everybody who's going through a challenging time right now, because I've been there. I've been on my bathroom floor where I can't pick myself up. I know what it's like. And I also knew that there were people at that time going through a great time in their life. And I remember looking at them thinking, that'll be me again. I just stayed focused with, I just have to, as beautiful Jacqueline would say to us, you have to feel it to heal it. If we suppress even the emotions of bad news or harsh things or things that aren't going well, if we suppress that and carry on with that stiff upper lip, then I can promise you the body will express itself in other ways. We cannot go through this thing called human life without really getting to know ourselves. Yeah, of course we can. There's lots of people who do go through life with a level of maybe ignorance or non-expansion. But for those of us, I can tell you this, the people that are listening to this podcast are definitely on that expansive route. They would not be tuned into a podcast like this without that expansion, awareness, or desire to change and grow. So yes, my dear, there are so many amazing elements to really honoring our dear, dear selves, but also by being the example and showing up. And I remember one of the other things by showing up that my counselor said was, I said, what about my children? They're watching this, they're seeing this. And she said, Darlene, you just have to show your children how to get through tough times. And I thought, yes, that is also the role modeling, the being. Life isn't always perfect. It's imperfectly perfect. So how can I show up? Well, of course, I didn't have to share everything with my children. I don't think that's their job to take on all my fears, worries, and concerns. That's what therapists and friends are for. But certainly it is my job to show up in the best way, best version I possibly can, with all the tools and inner resources I have to get through it. And if I can't get through it and I'm really struggling, I'm yelling, I'm not sleeping, I'm losing my shizzle, I'm not coping, whatever it is, that's when I know I need more help. I need more guidance and someone without that emotional mosh pit of fear going on. I can actually step in and get that support and help I need.
So I'm curious, Kim, what does self-care look like for you in your sort of daily practice or weekly practice? What sorts of things do you do to keep yourself balanced and on track?
I think for me, the most powerful thing has been my essential oils. I've been an aromatherapist since 1991. So I really do believe in the innate intelligence of plants and nature and Mother Nature herself. There is nothing more healing than sunshine, water, outdoor fresh air. Like, I know it seems so basic, but these are the things that our bodies, our minds, our hearts and souls absolutely crave and desire. And I think with that, I created aromatic rituals. There's not a day that's gone by since I was 18 that I haven't used essential oils. So I'll have my diffuser going. I'll do an aromatic tissue every single day since I was 18. I have body boosted. So every day I do a teaspoon of oil, 3 drops of, that's carrier oil, 3 drops of essential oil or a blend, some magnesium. And I put that from toe to neck all the way over my body, giving thanks to every part of my body. Now that can take 30 seconds to 2 minutes. It's just every morning I set an intention of gratitude and grace around this incredible vehicle. Because it's funny, well, it's not funny, but you can think about this also, someone that sits there going, oh, I hate my hair. We say these flippant comments, I hate my hair, or I need a haircut, or I don't feel great. And you don't know who's around you that's just come through having radiation treatment and their hair's just grown back. Or you say you don't like your stomach because of all the stretch marks. You don't know who's going through the 5th bout of IVF. Or you say, oh, I hate my boobs, they hang so low. You don't know who's just had to have a mastectomy or a double mastectomy in order to get and save their life. So, the book, The 4 Agreements, was also one of my rituals where I really do like to embrace those 4 agreements of be impeccable with your word, don't take things personally, ask questions, and always give your best. And I always figured that if I can live into those rituals and principles with aromatic rituals like my aroma mist, my compressing, beautiful skincare, like you'd think I spend hours, but I'm a busy woman and I'm not that. I call them triple M's, micro moments of mindfulness. So long as whatever I do, I am focused and very present in that moment. I love breath work. Obviously, I love running. I love yoga. I love my gym. I train 3 times a week with my personal trainer. I've really made all of these things such a priority for me because when I'm good, everyone else in the house is good. And I think most of us would agree that if the woman of the house is happy and healthy, life runs smoothly for everyone else. So, but no one's going to do it for us. No one's going to say, oh, Cindy, here you go. Here's 7 days at Gwangana. There you go. You go and take care of yourself. Or you go and here, let me spend 5,000 on you to take you over here and do. No one. Or I'm yet to meet many people that have ever had that opportunity. But in all honesty, no one's going to do it for you. And if you stand there as a martyr thinking or wishing or thinking, God, no one ever cares, well, no one should. In my humble opinion, you should not be doing life for someone else to care for you. You should be doing life for you to care for you. And the minute you become focused and aware that you're the only one that can create health and wellness, you're the only one that can create a beautiful, healthy, lean, fit body. You're the only one that chooses what to put into and onto their body. You're the only one that can think those thoughts. You're the only one that can learn and grow and expand yourself or do therapy or do some sort of counseling or read or podcasts or listening to incredible speakers. And that ultimately is our self-responsibility. So those rituals, I love grounding. When I walk out to the letterbox every day, I'll walk on the grass, take 3 deep breaths, look up at the sky and say something I'm grateful for. I mean, I forget what I do because they're such a part of my world that it's not until someone asks me what I do. This morning, I made sure after the gym, I had to go and get some beautiful, I got a tin of sardines. Don't know why I'm craving sardines. This is so bizarre because I haven't eaten sardines for 20 years. But today, I don't know, I just felt like sardines and put some balsamic vinegar and onion and then put that on a piece of paleo toast. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was listening to my body. It was craving something. And so, yeah, just those things, making that a priority. And of course, I don't want any of your beautiful listeners or followers to think that, it's easy for her. Yes, my children have grown up and they've left home. But in the throes of from nappies to right through to the end of school, I also made it a priority. My children watched me body boost every morning. They knew if the door was closed for 10 minutes, they had to give mummy 10 minutes to have her aromatic bath. And if there were days where I was stressed, sometimes I would come in and they'd run the bath and shut the door for me because I was creating role modeling moments.
Yeah.
Touch is very important to me. So that's why I love doing the daily body boost every single day. And my son always goes, are you sure you're telling the truth? Has there never been a day you've missed? I said, there's days I've missed showers, but I've never missed the body boost. Even when I was in hospital with back surgery, I body boosted. Like, to me, they become so important. They're my non-negotiables. And if I don't take care of me, if I don't sit down, yesterday I had a plan to do it was Mother's Day. None of my kids were around. I decided I was going to actually sit there and do a whole lot of work. And I got my computer open and I sat there and I was looking at it and I was actually really tired. So I thought, I don't think my body's liking the idea of working. So I got on my bike. I went for a ride up to the markets, came back, made myself a beautiful smoothie, sat outside in the sun, did a post on social media. Like, it was just, I don't know, I just listened. And then I thought, it's Sunday, I can do the work tomorrow. And so I've really learned the art of being very present to how I feel in the moment. And I am someone who's suffered with insomnia or who's had adrenal fatigue because I just push and go. So, you know, when you get the opportunity to have back surgery, that gets you to look at what you're doing. Or when your shoulder gets dislocated, you start to look at what you're doing. Or when a bottle gets dropped on your toe on the weekend, you think, how did I put my toe there as she dropped the bottle? And all of these things to me are things of, yeah, I just need to be really mindful of taking my time, relaxing. And as I said, Cindy, they're only micro moments. I just do a lot of them. And I think, going back to your point of the accumulation effect, it's better to do a whole lot of little things often than a whole lot of nothing at all. So that's been my philosophy the whole way through, from being a teenager all the way through to now, and through motherhood and being a partner, a wife, a businesswoman, all of those things. I have to practice what I preach. And I think that's probably why I do teach what I do, because it keeps me very accountable.
And I love that, the fact that you've brought it into your daily practice. I mean, it'd be lovely to go off to a 7-day retreat, but not everyone can afford that time, or, you know, even the cost of going to something like that. And I don't think necessarily that we need a holiday away from our regular routine to recharge. We need to find ways to recharge in our everyday life. So I love the examples that you've shared around how to just incorporate that into your everyday practice, even, you know, just walking to your mailbox and stepping on the grass and offering something to be grateful for. So what's next for Kim in all of your business and your books, and where you're heading with your retreats? What's next for you?
I'm so excited, because also as a beautiful a coach and someone who looks after, you know, executives, entrepreneurs, stay-at-home mums, professionals, I feel very honored and proud. I have my Essential Self-Care Weekend, which is a virtual weekend workshop to really immerse yourself into creating a shift so that self-care becomes a priority again. That's an amazing weekend. That's in June. And then I've just launched, not to the public, but just to my self-love and wellness mentorship group. I have a private group where every Tuesday night we do a beautiful session, and it's for people that can't afford coaching or can't afford lots of therapy, but I do that on a monthly basis. It's a weekly basis. It's $47 a month. So beautiful women in there, and I get to do love seat interviews, masterclasses, Q&As, and then I set a challenge every month. So that's my favorite. And I just launched to that group this week my Essential Self-Mastery program, which is a 15-week program where we dive deep into mindset, reframe, modeling excellence. How do we use meditation, self-care, self-hypnosis? What can we do to really embrace who we are in the moment, not when we get to a certain weight or goal? Who are we right here, right now? I talk about essential oils, how to use them on a daily basis for first aid and psychoaromatherapy. Aromatic daily rituals. I talk about personalities. It's something that I'm very passionate about, because, you know, if we can seek to understand other people before we actually tell them who we are, we soon realize that we're all different, not wrong. And if we could just learn to reframe what we hear or understand, it's all about perspective. Nothing is true. It's just everyone's perspective. Then also the triggering in relationships and energies and jobs and things like that also can take a massive shift. So I feel very honored to be leading this. It's the first time I've launched this program. That starts in August. And that's really for anyone, as I said, from the executive person to the young student starting out on their career at uni, right through to a stay-at-home mum to an entrepreneur. It's, to me, self-love and self-care is the foundation for everything. If you can nail self-love through these beautiful steps, what I call in the self-love circle, self-care is one of them. Self-awareness is the first, self-care is the second, but the big one is self-discipline, number 3. And I do believe self-discipline is where a lot of us let ourselves down. We'll start off going, yeah, I'm going to get really fit. I'm going to look after myself. And then usually within 3 to 4 weeks, it's too hard. And so I'm very big on the power of discipline. There is no way any one of us could get through anything, and we can do it way better and way quicker when we apply that ability to care for ourselves as well as applying the discipline. And then the other 3 steps are just that they're beautiful. They unfold right through to self-acceptance. And that's loving who we are, warts and all, the highs, the lows, the goods and not so goods, understanding the power of, you said, vulnerability, knowing what it's like to find that inner strength when we've been pushed to the brink, understanding the meaning we all put into the world. And I love that line, life has no meaning. And it has no meaning that it has no meaning. It's only the meaning we give it. So, you could be in a situation where there's 2 of you looking or being a part of something, and one of you will have one perspective and the other will have another perspective. Is it true? No, it's just a perspective. And if we can apply that to relationships, to health, to wellness, one other thing I'd say around wellness is we know, and it's been proven, that in a room full of people, if I say to them, if you were confronted with a life-threatening illness, would you change your lifestyle, your thoughts, and the way you do your daily behaviors? Everyone in the room puts their hand up. Of course they would, they say. But the truth is, only 1 in 10 actually do what it takes. And that's staggering to me, because your body, this vessel, this vehicle, is the most powerful tool we have, along with our mind and the way that we think. So yes, I'm excited and delighted to be doing my weekend retreats, my 15-week program, and of course my self-love and wellness mentorship group. I love the work, and I believe it's a daily ritual and a daily discipline. And I think if we could all just realize to expand ourselves, to constantly learn, to grow, to work through and ride through the days that challenge us, and then really embrace and love the days that just warm our hearts, realize nothing stays the same, nothing's ever the same forever, and enjoy wherever you're at right now. And if you're not happy, only you can change that. And that can happen just with your thoughts or your tools and rituals that you do on a daily basis. So that's my passion, and that's where I'm at, beautiful girl.
You've got passion just oozing out of every pore. It's just such an inspiration talking to you today. How can people find you, Kim?
Thank you. You can go to my beautiful business if you want some oils or any of the self-care rituals or the candles or the beautiful chemical-free products that I have in their skincare, is at 28, the word 20 and the number 8.com. Or if you want to know more about me and the programs and all of those things, then that's kimmorrison.com. And you'll find me on all the socials under the same 2 names.
Great. And I will post those links in the show notes as well, so people can easily find you. Thank you so much for your time today, Kim. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge and experience in this space of self-care and self-love. I know that it will ripple on in the days and years to come.
You beautiful soul. And thank you. I would like to say thank you for having cancer, for creating this, but let's just say thank you for having a body awareness moment where you have now used that as a platform to share with all of us. And I'm so grateful to the work that you do. So thank you.
I can actually say, Kim, now I am grateful for having cancer, because I've come to the other side, and I can look back and actually have gratitude for the growth, the expansion, the self-love, the deeper connections that I have with life, with people around me. My life would not be what it is today for having that experience. So I am absolutely, truly grateful for the wake-up call.
Oh, you beautiful soul. It's such a beam of light. And there's one quote I could finish on for you. That's one of my absolute favorites. And it's about igniting that spark within us. And if we can hold the light in ourselves, the ripple effect that that has, which is if there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. If there's beauty in the person, there is harmony in the home. If there's harmony in the home, there is order in the nation. If there's order in the nation, there is peace in this world. So it comes back to us, my lovelies. It really is. Self-care is our divine responsibility.
Thank you so much, Kim. What a beautiful way to finish off.
Thanks so much for joining us today on Rethinking Cancer. I hope this episode has lifted your spirits. Come and join us again for more inspirational cancer thriver stories, expert interviews, and strategies to live your best life. Who knows, maybe it could be your story next. I'm Cindy Scott. Until we meet again.